Today, we are diving into an absolute giant of a book, Barack Obama's memoir, A Promised Land. This is an inside look at one of the most incredible political journeys of our time, straight from the man himself. So let's get right into the wisdom packed inside. Okay, let's just be real for a second. You see a book that's 768 pages long, a 26-hour audiobook, and your first thought probably isn't, oh, I'll just knock that out this weekend. It's an epic story, for sure, but who has the time for all of that?
Well, what if you didn't have to? What if you could pull out the essential lessons, the key moments, and the core wisdom of this entire historic memoir in just the next few minutes? That's exactly what we're about to do.
All right, let's start where he did. How does a person with such a unique and kind of complicated background even begin a journey toward the most powerful office on the planet?
You see, what makes this book so powerful is that it's not just a dry political account. Obama really frames his entire life as this deep personal search for identity. He was trying to figure out where he fit in, and that search is what lit the fire for his totally improbable path to the White House. And this whole thing was a slow burn, not some sudden explosion onto the scene. He talks about being a lackadaisical student, just trying to make sense of his mixed-race heritage. Then he becomes a community organizer in Chicago, and that's where he really learned how to listen to people, how to fail, and how to bring them together. That experience planted the seeds that took him from the Illinois State Senate to that absolutely audacious, world-changing campaign in 2008. And what was guiding him? At the very heart of it all was this question from his mother. He says this wasn't just some casual piece of advice. It was the question that echoed in his head his entire life. It shaped everything about his worldview and how he approached being a leader. But, of course, a path like that is never smooth. Right in the middle of the 2008 campaign, a huge crisis blew up over some controversial remarks made by his pastor, Reverend Jeremiah Wright. I mean, it was the kind of thing that could have sunk the entire campaign right then and there. Now, the easy political move would have been to just cut ties, right? Disown him and move on. But he did the exact opposite. He walked right into the fire and delivered this incredible landmark speech on race in America. He used a potential disaster to force a deeper, more honest conversation instead of just running from it.
So he wins this historic election. And what's waiting for him on the other side of victory? A world completely on fire with crisis. I want you to just think about this number for a minute. 1 in 3. In his very first economic briefing as president-elect, that's what his team told him the odds were of a second Great Depression. That's the reality he walked into on day one. Unbelievable.
So the response had to be absolutely massive, and it had to happen on multiple fronts at once. While he's fighting tooth and nail to pass a nearly $800 billion stimulus package, with the opposition calling it wasteful, he's also managing 2 wars. He's drawing down troops in Iraq, while at the same time surging them into Afghanistan. The sheer weight of that is just hard to even imagine.
And then came the big one, healthcare. He describes the fight for the Affordable Care Act as this grueling, year-long legislative war. It wasn't just a policy debate. He was battling intense opposition and this viral wave of misinformation. You remember all that talk about death panels? And the stakes were just as high with national security. I mean, when it came to Osama bin Laden, the intelligence was anything but a sure thing. He calls it a 50-50 call, a coin toss. And yet, he had to be the one to make the call, to send Navy SEALs into another country on a raid where failure would be absolutely catastrophic.
This quote for me just sums up the impossible nature of the job. Think about this. He wins the Nobel Peace Prize right after taking office while in the middle of 2 wars. His reflection on that moment says it all. He's basically acknowledging that you're never going to get it perfect, but you have to try. Whatever you do won't be enough. Try anyway. Wow.
So after hearing all that, what can we actually take away? How do we apply the lessons from these incredibly high-stakes decisions to our own, slightly less global superpower lives?
Well, here's a really practical exercise you can do, inspired by the book. Think about a tough decision you've had to make. First, did you really map out everyone it would affect? Then, and this is the important part, did you actually listen to the people who disagreed with you? I mean, really listen? And finally, after it was all over, did you go back and look at the unintended consequences? That's how you turn these big ideas into a real-world practice.
So you might be wondering, how in the world did we just cover so much ground? We went from community organizing in Chicago all the way to the raid on bin Laden's compound, and we did it in just a couple of minutes. How is that possible? Well, here's the secret. The reason we could move so fast and get right to the heart of the matter is that this entire breakdown, it was powered by just one single, incredibly potent summary of the book. And that summary came from learner.org. It's a platform designed for this exact thing, to give you the essential wisdom from the world's most important books so you can learn smarter, not just harder.
And A Promised Land is really just the tip of the iceberg. Imagine having this kind of clear, distilled insight on leadership, on business, psychology, productivity, communication, a whole library of knowledge, right there at your fingertips.
So we started this whole thing with a question about time. Now you've seen how you can get a lifetime of wisdom in just a few minutes. So I guess the only question left to ask is, what will you learn next?